All right, here we go. Now we're back. And I appreciate everybody for hanging in there with me. My name is Quinon Brooker. And thank you for joining our show, The Outer Chambers. This is episode 1. And we are here to get this thing started the right way. Now I'm quite sure you can hear me. Now watch this. I'm going to see if everybody can hear me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm sure the answer is going to be yes. Thank you for your patience and your understanding. It has been 3 years since I've been able to do this the way I really wanted to, which is to come back and talk and discuss the issues of the day. This show, The Outer Chambers, is a show about the issues that affect Black society. However, because it is a show by and for the bros, we are going to take it from the perspective of the mighty men of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So I thank you for being here today. Now, again, my name is Quinon Brooker Esq. I am the 6th Spring 98 Mighty OE, Bethune-Cookman College in the 7th District. I am currently active in financial in the Rho Beta Beta chapter, in Houston, Texas. I got people blowing me up already. It is not time. It is not time yet. It is not time yet to take any calls. We got people blowing us up already. And I appreciate that. I'm glad people are calling, but not yet. We are going to have time for calls shortly. So, brothers, I want you to, right now, pound on the like button and pound on the share button. To all the bros across the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, the 12th, and the 13th district to come on in. Come on into the chamber as we discuss the issues that affect the bros. Tonight, I have a very special host for you. A very good brother discussing a very important issue. An issue that can change the fraternity in a positive way. I'll be bringing that host on pretty soon. He is patiently waiting in the waiting room. I'm looking at him right now. But in the meantime, I'd also like to introduce the show to all of the fratres and sorors of the National Panhellenic Council. Greetings. You are also welcome to listen to this discussion. Share it with your friends, even those that are uninitiated. People all over the world, if you are an ally of Black society, tune in, and we appreciate you. So right now, I'm going to bring in our very special guest. He is the 37th 2nd District Representative. He is a good friend of mine, Brother Kelvin K. Ampofo. Let's welcome Brother Ampofo to the show. Brother Ampofo, it is nice to have you here today. Greetings, brother. Who are you? Who are you, brother?
Greetings to everyone. Brother Kelvin Ampofo, I am the number 5, Spring 98, Mighty Omicron Epsilon chapter. That's Bethune-Cookman, 7th District, Daytona Beach, Florida.
Brother DR, it is nice to have you. In fact, it is a pleasure to have you here today. Brother, you are the district representative, and congratulations. I know that this has been a really long stretch, a long year. You've been working hard to get to this point. How are you feeling right now, man? What's going on? How are you feeling?
Well, LB, it's just like we've always been taught, man. We're just doing the work of Omega. I never get caught up in titles.
Right.
I'm just here for the brothers, man. It's a lot of work to be done, and I just appreciate the love. I appreciate the support from the brothers. Of course, the 5 states that we have in the 2nd District. And I just want to continue to just do the work for the brothers. You know, it's not about titles. It's not about pomps and circumstances. It's about taking care of the brothers, man, doing the right thing, just the way that we've been trained to do. That's it.
Man, we've been in the fraternity now for 22 years. It seems like just yesterday when we were coming together and having sessions and meetings about how we can best add value to the fraternity, man. And you know, I think from what I can recall, man, the first day I ever met you was actually at our interest meeting. You wanna share a little bit about that to all the good people that's watching?
Well, you know, I think as many people, maybe, although they may not admit it, I think at first when we go to these interest meetings, we have no idea what's about to happen, what's about to take place. And so I think the point that you're alluding to is that this interest meeting, I showed up to the interest meeting with my high school Letterman jacket. And so the thing that's important about this high school Letterman jacket is my high school mascot was a yellow jacket. And that means our jacket was black and gold. And so I walked into the Bruz interest meeting with the black and gold jacket on. And it was a pretty interesting experience. So needless to say, I never wore that jacket for the rest of my college career.
I did notice that. And you being a graduate of the great Randolph-Macon Academy in Maryland, quite proud of your institution, man. But, man, you should have known better than that.
Yeah.
Coming to the thing with a black and gold jacket on. Yeah, man. So, man, look, man, again, I'm extremely excited for you. I know just how hard you work in the frat. Admittedly, as soon as we graduated, in which you, myself, and another one of our line brothers, brother Michael Johnson, we all graduated at the same time. But as soon as you graduated, we all went and got financial. But you went home and got to work. So, and I'm like, bruh, what's going on? Tell us a little bit about that, man. Like when you went back home to Maryland, how did you get back into the flow, and how did you get into leadership so quickly? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you said a good brother there. Our number 4, Michael Johnson. I believe he paved the way for us. He started us off. And so obviously, as you know, to the brothers that's watching and to our guests, Michael Johnson is a former 7th District, 2nd Vice District Representative. But most importantly, and in addition, he's also a former 2nd Vice Grand Bossless. That's the highest position that an undergraduate can hold in our fraternity.
Correct.
And so obviously, watching Michael Johnson and then obviously serving as our chapter keeper of finance while we were undergrads, leadership has just always been a part of our entire line. Of course, we can't forget our ace, Greg Drain, who's doing this thing now, leading the band at Penn State University, and they're just doing awesome things there. But to your question, you know, after college, man, coming back home to Maryland, at the time, you know, my job was in Frederick, Maryland. And so one of the things that, as you know, our pro-fights instilled into us is that service. And so the chapter in Frederick, Maryland, Alpha Lambda Lambda, I went straight to work, joined the committee, got involved with the committee, got involved with the community. And then from there, worked my way up, eventually becoming a vice bossless and a bossless of that chapter. So it's just been great. And that was just the beginning. That was just the beginning of the career.
Now, Brother Star, let me stop you there, man. Listen, you are the youngest of our line. You were always a leader in school. I remember that. I remember you always had the keys to every building. I don't know how you pulled that off. But you were always a leader, and you were extremely young. I was 20 when we pledged. So from what I can recall, I believe you were 19 years old when we pledged Omega Psi Phi back in spring of '98. And yet when you graduated, you got into the graduate chapter and you immediately got to work. Was that a tough transition for you being, 23 years old, 22, 23 years old when you graduated? Was that a difficult transition with you going into the grad chapters with these older bros that have been in the chapter and in the fraternity for decades? You know, was that difficult for you?
I think that, you know, anything, especially going from college into the graduate chapters, I think it certainly has its challenges. But the key for me was exactly what our fraternity is about, and that's friendship. And so the key for me was establishing friendships with brothers that were in the chapter that assisted with the transition. And so one of the things I want to definitely make sure that my recent undergraduates that have just graduated and as they matriculate into graduate chapters is, don't necessarily make it a priority to just go and join a grad chapter, right? Because we've got to maintain that friendship, establish that relationship, establish those bonds first, and that'll help you as you transition into the graduate chapter. So the key for me, man, was just finding friends, finding brothers, latching on to those brothers, getting tight with their families, and that helped me graduate and eventually ascend into the graduate chapter.
It's funny, man, and I think that's great advice for the brothers that are about to graduate and move on. But I remember also when I graduated, I went to the second district as well, because I'm from Philadelphia, and so I can remember there being this huge kind of like culture shift between being initiated in the 7th district in the South and then going home to Pennsylvania and us two being in the 2nd district. I remember there being this big culture shift. Well, first of all, there's that shift between being an undergrad and a graduate chapter, bro, right? That's the first thing. But then just slightly different, even though it was the same fraternity and we spoke a lot of the same language, it was slightly different. How did you navigate those differences? Because the way we were raised was different than the way a lot of brothers up north are raised. Tell us about that.
Yeah, definitely a different experience. But at the end of the day, I think it still goes back to what I said as it relates to friendship. So, the bros, different terminology during the different times, right? I think the bros like to use the word groove now. So again, whatever you got to do to establish those friendships, that eventually gets us to the crux of the matter. And so as it relates to the fraternity, we got to get to the point, where we gather together so that we can grow together. And that key of gathering, that's really where it all begins. So whether you were like us, you were made in the 7th, whether you were made in the 2nd, at the end of the day, we're still marching as Omega men. The whole entire world sees Omega men. So the brothers are going to do what we got to do, right? We got to make sure that, we understand each other first. We're going to talk about what we need to talk about. And then once we get past that point, we move together as brothers, because at the end of the day, that's what everybody is seeing. Everybody's seeing Omega Psi Phi. So we just got to continue to do those things. It's not the same. It's not the same. I see bros, they just, run into each other, and it's like either they don't want to engage, they don't want to have a conversation for whatever reason. But right. we got to do the things that work. And, we got to talk. We got to make sure we understand each other. And as you know, some of our best friends that we have to this day are based upon how we met them, not just because we met them, but how we met them. So that 20-minute, 30-minute conversation of just knowing about each other, learning about each other, your family, your kids, whatever it is, to this day, some of those friendships that we share from other brothers from other chapters, it's all about how it started.
No, I totally agree with that, man. I mean, this is it's fitting, and I appreciate you, man, because I had talked to you about doing something like this for a few weeks now. I used to do the show QB Law TV and just talking about issues as it relates to our communities and as it relates to Black society. So I really appreciate you being a part of this, man. It's really important to me. What a lot of people may not know is me and this man, we talk almost every single day anyway. And so I thought it'd be interesting to have you, considering, first of all, how extremely proud of you we are for all of your accomplishments and all your hard work. Even though, again, you were the youngest on our line, you were always motivational to me. And I'm quite sure, to the rest of our line as well. So I really appreciate that, man. But you brought up an interesting thing when you talked about how we met some of our friends doing, I guess, the undergraduate thing, the road tripping and all of that. We met some of our friends, and then we look up 20 years later, oh, lo and behold, we're seeing these same friends doing things in the fraternity. Can you talk a little bit about the experiences that we had on those road trips and people that we met and how it may relate to some of the brothers that are still working for the frat right now?
again, like I said, it's all about how you meet people. And of course, we've taken care of our line, and we would be foolish if we didn't acknowledge those unknown soldiers who were responsible for bringing us into the fold of Omega. And I know you remember this road trip very well. And this was a road trip to Psi Phi chapter, South Carolina State. And the dynamics of the line. I'll share with everybody so we all get on the same page. Of course, our ace and our four at the time, they were in the band. Of course, QB, our tail, he was on the SGA, which means he had the luxury of sitting in the press box during the game. So that left me, the five, the rock. Never by myself, but just, at the time without my LBs. And so the road trip, man, to my pro fights and their dean that was in the car with us, that road trip from Daytona up to South Carolina was very interesting because when we got out of the car, and as you know, as the Neo, that means that I was sitting in the middle. And so this is a 4-passenger car, Nissan Sentra, shout out to Clay. And I'm sitting in the middle as the Neo. And so all I know is when we got to the school, we got to the yard, we got out, everybody got out of the car, and I'm stretching. And as soon as I get done stretching, I don't know what happened to my pro fights. They were gone. they was gone. And so all I could do was, resort to, what we was taught. And so, of course, we find the bruhs, and I find our sands. Spring '98 is Psi Phi, and we had an interesting meeting. But as it relates to your point, talking about friendship and how you meet people, you being from Philly, you met some bruhs, and based upon your interaction, you had the fortunate privilege of having them come down to Daytona Beach.
Correct.
And these brothers I'm talking to is none other than the brothers of Beta Gamma chapter, Cheney University, and that Spring '99 line. To this day, our closest friends, every single one of them. And to that point, I've had the opportunity, the privilege, the honor to serve right next to Brother Lee Rideout. And Brother Lee Rideout was the second district keeper of finance, while I served as the district keeper of records and seal. And the thing that was so amazing was that the brothers that didn't know Rideout and I, they thought that our friendship was just based on the fact that we were on the council together. And so the brothers that actually took the time to talk with us after the meetings, to talk to us during the breaks or what have you, it was a pleasure, it was an honor to share our story, how we met back in 1999, back in 2000.
Bro, they did not know the history.
They didn't know.
They did not know the history, man.
They didn't know.
OE and BG. So amazing how that worked. And so then almost 20 years later, I think 20 years later, y'all find yourself working together on the district council, right?
Correct.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. I can only tell you, when I first road tripped up to BG, and of course that was a mandate for us that was laid out by our pro fight, the 13 Al Sharif. So when I finally made it up there, I believe I made it up there in '99. We were off for spring break for a week, and I had every intention of going up there maybe for a night and kick it. But that one night when I went up there with no bag, hardly any money, no change of clothes, I wound up staying up there for a week and kicking it. First of all, being in the room with the entire 99 line as they asked me a series of questions. And I remember one of the brothers in particular with his back to me the whole time. That was interesting, but that's my dog to this day.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man. And so it was Brother Rideout that actually put me in his room, man. Put me in his room and gave me his meal card for the week. And he said, bro, you're good. You're good, man. You with the BG bros. So yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how even 20 some years later, we still are friends, and you get to see these brothers actually working hard in the frat. So that's awesome, man. So speaking of road tripping, man, that's a culture in our fraternity, right? Mm-hmm. At least it used to be. I don't know if that's it's still a cultural thing. But talk about, you know, your experience road tripping as an undergrad, and how does those experiences relate to what you had to do to get to the point where you are today as the district representative? Or did it have any overlap at all?
You know, certainly road tripping is just, it's just so critical. And it's not even critical to becoming into a leadership position, I don't believe. I think it's critical just to continue the basis of our fraternity, friendship. So, you know, we say it all the time, we talk about it all the time, but how in the world can I be in a city and not try to find the bros?
Right.
And you know, maybe honestly, you know, we may need to get some feedback from other brothers, because maybe somewhat selfishly, right? Maybe that's just the way that we was made. But I just can't fathom. I couldn't fathom, and I know we couldn't as a line, going somewhere and just not at least trying to find the bros.
Correct.
Because, you know, to that day, you know, I believe that there is not a city where we can go. And that's not just domestic, right? We know bros internationally.
Correct.
Anywhere we can go where we can either pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm in town. I mean, let's give a shout out to Bosco, right? We go on our family vacations. We go to the Bahamas, and yes, we have chapter bros, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Shmiko. We have chapter bros that's in or from the various islands, right? But I mean, my wife was just simply amazed that we are on a family vacation and I can communicate with the bros. The bros come and pick us up from the port, take us around the island, take us to the, you know, the spots, you know what I'm saying? Right. To get the not that tourist stuff. We talking about the hole in the wall, you know, the food, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, right. Yeah. And so how in the world, and nobody does this, nobody else does this, right? But the bros. And so it's just amazing. So yeah, so now as a DR, and I always appeal to my undergrads, and even with my current undergraduate reps now, the second vice and the undergrad reps, we just had a call the other day, and you could see them opening up like, oh, he's the DR, but he's cool. He's the bros. Right. It just makes a difference. And that's the piece that we got to make sure, you know, as we know, our fraternity founded by undergraduates. Right. And so, and even though we are in graduate chapters now and we are doing the work as graduate brothers, we got to always make sure that we come back to our undergrads, make sure that they have what they need. But most importantly, we got to make sure that they have a voice. Let them be heard. Let them be heard.
Right. Well, man, now you're talking about business now, man. Let's talk about, you know, your role as a DR. You know, you and I have had many conversations about, you know, where we want to be, you know, what it is that we want to do in terms of a legacy, how we want to help the fraternity to grow, and coincidentally, how we want to help our people through the fraternity. Because the reality is we have an implied motto, and we also have a duty pursuant to our cardinal principles to be a help, not only to the world, but to Black society specifically. So given that we've talked about this, I'm wondering about some of your goals and things of that nature. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the business side of the frat as a DR, your goals within the first 90 days of your administration. What is it that you look to accomplish as a district representative in your first 90 days?
Well, certainly these 90 days are unprecedented. And the times that we're facing right now, not only as Omega men, but as Black men, as Black people in a society, these are times that are just very challenging. And so keeping in mind that as a district representative, there's business that needs to be taken care of, I don't lose sight of the fact that we have people especially our black people
in the society
that need to be taken care of. I'm getting some feedback in my headset. So first 90 days, first thing we got to do is, hey, listen, as a DR, I got to put the team together. So probably the first 30 days, I'm making sure that I have my what we call corridor reps. Some districts, they use state reps. Here in the 2nd district, we break it down to corridors. So I make sure my corridor reps in place. I make sure my committee chairman are in place. So that's how I got to make sure that the leadership team is organized. Additionally, we got to make sure, obviously, we've got the Grand Conclave coming up. And so part of the Grand Conclave includes voting. And so the challenge this year with everything, with COVID and everything, we're going to do a virtual conclave. So we got to make sure that brothers are registered. But most importantly, we got to make sure that our delegates are registered. And why is it so important that our delegates are registered? Well, the 2nd district, we have an endorsed candidate. We've already talked about friendship. We've already talked about the Brothers of Beta Gamma chapter. And so the brother that I worked next to, the brother that's been my friend ever since we met, Brother Lee Rideout, as a district, as a 2nd district, we have to do our part to make sure that he gets elected as the next Grand Keeper of Finance. And so with that, I have a reorganization meeting coming up at the end of the month. This is an opportunity to lay out to the brothers the plan for the district. Additionally, one of the things that's critical with any business, we have to do, we must remember that we are a business, and so that there's an organizational audit, an operational audit that needs to be completed. So I'm working with my audit teams. I'm working with my keeper of finance, my keeper of records and seal, making sure that all the documents are turned over correctly and that everything is done in a nature that's satisfactory to the brothers. So that's the first 90 days. In addition, while all of that is happening, we can't forget what's happening right before our eyes. And, we say the names that have only made it to the media, and hope I'm not getting off track here, but we say the names that are only in the media, right? And certainly we pay homage, we give our respects to the families, that have lost loved ones due to social injustice. But, I think you and I, LB, we were just talking the other day. What about those names that we haven't seen? What about those incidences where there were no cameras? What about that? And so to that end, part of my organizational structure is this. I've implemented committees that haven't been implemented before. And so just to name a few, number one, social justice. So the 2nd district, we have a social justice committee. And so this committee is going to look at opportunities to respond. They're going to look at opportunities to address the social injustice that our people have faced. And I say this to my brothers, and I say this to my sisters that are watching. I say this to all my brothers and sisters that are here. This did not happen overnight. And unfortunately, the society we live in today is very rapid. We fiend for instant gratification. We fiend for instant responses. So I know brothers and sisters, they're out there, they put a post up and they're just waiting for a like, or they're waiting for, a comment. And so I simply want to implore my brothers and sisters that, as difficult as it is for me to say this, we've got to be patient. Okay. We have to understand that the plan is in process, and understand that when the plan is formulated and when it's time for action, we're going to win, and we're going to win huge.
I want to talk a little bit about that social justice thing, man.
Yeah.
Again, you don't have to go very deep into our history to understand that Omega men have always been in the forefront of social justice issues as it relates to our people, and coincidentally, as it relates to people all over the world. You said something interesting, and it's been something that I've been talking about for a long time now. What we're seeing is not new. What we're seeing is available for this particular generation. For generations before us, you had your Emmett Till that really set the country on fire and got people to open their eyes as to the treatment of Black people in this country. And so, again, every generation kind of has that person that gets people angry and upset. I don't remember in my lifetime seeing it like this. However, There are many, many people that have been named and many, many, many more that have been unnamed. I talk about the book, 100 Years of Lynching by Ginsburg, that chronicled the lynching that occurred in all 50 states in this country over the span of 100 years. So this is not anything new. Coincidentally, we have Omega Psi Phi that's been in existence for almost 110 years. And so the question is, what are we going to do as Omega men? We say that we're leaders at home and in church and in our communities and in our businesses. But this is quite possibly the greatest challenge that we've ever faced as a people in our generation. What are the men of Omega Psi Phi going to do? And that's really my question, good bro.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know what? That's the question that I believe all of us have. Because again, to my point, the reality is this. I believe sometimes, and the most of us, we are looking for something instantaneous. And I just don't believe at this point in time it's something that we want that can happen that fast. So we've got to strategize. We've got to sit down. We've got to lay out the plan. And then we've got to execute it. Now, here's the other part. And I mean, you and I, we read the same books. The answers are there. The answers are there. The question is, are the people, I'm talking about us, right? Are we willing to do it? So that's the other part of it. So it's identifying the plan, strategizing, and then execution. Are we going to do it? And I'll just give you an example. I've seen the social media. I've seen the talks about, hey, listen, you know what we're going to do? We're going to boycott a particular business. We're not going to shop there anymore. Okay, that sounds great. But then when I turn around, what do I see? I see people going there shopping. Right. So it's a part of, if we say we're going to do something, we have to do it. I believe that, yes, we got to, there's an opportunity to make a statement in the financial department. Absolutely. When you hit somebody in the pocket, they're going to feel it. Absolutely. But again, are we going to do it as a people? Right. Got to strategize. Once we develop the plan, we've got to follow through together. We've got to stick together. We've got to execute together.
Quick second. We got 23 in the room right now. We appreciate you. We are taking questions and comments. If you have a question, go ahead and put it in the post. I will try my best to get that question to the 37th Second District Representative, Brother Kelvin K. Ampofo, 5 Spring 98, Mighty OE. So just in thinking, man, with respect to, this pandemic, we're dealing with the pandemic of racism. We already knew that. We'll continue to deal with that until we replace this system with a system of justice. But nevertheless, we also got hit early this year with the pandemic with respect to our health. And I believe the two go together, because it is the Black society that is going to feel the brunt of this attack, of this disease, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. We're the ones that are going to be treated differently. We're going to receive the substandard health care. We're going to, as a result of our current health positions, the current ailments that we have, we're going to be the ones that are dying at a disproportionate rate, just like every other thing that occurs in white supremacy. So this COVID-19 disease has ravaged us as a people. The fraternity has taken certain steps for us to be safe. As you mentioned earlier, we have the virtual conclave on next month. Do you have any ideas, any recommendations, any programs that you intend to implement as DR? I mean, again, I know that you didn't ask for this. You did not ask for a time such as this, but this is what you inherited, my brother. So what you going to do about it, brother DR? Do you have any plans, any ideas, any recommendations?
Listen, one thing that's very clear, and I got to give a shout out to our second district health initiatives chairman, Dr. Jadan Phillips. One thing that we do in the second district is every week we have what we call a COVID-19 call. We have a task force that was set up to ensure that chapters in the second district had the various needs as it relates to PPE, and any other needs that chapters need for their communities. So every Wednesday, the second district, we have a task force that's led by the brothers from LGG, Lambda Gamma Gamma chapter, and in conjunction with the brothers of the 2nd District. So we talk about making sure that the chapters have what they need. But one thing that Dr. Jadan Phillips is very clear, and it does a great job of reminding us, as currently as it stands, there is no cure, there is no vaccine. So one of the things that we stress is the importance of wearing a mask. Now, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to, provide medical advice or anything like this. But one thing that I do know that we've all seen is that people are dying.
Right.
And the other thing that Dr. Phillips talks about is, hey, listen, to your point, LB, we've got to take care of ourselves.
Right.
There's some contributing factors that have led to some people passing away, whether it's diabetes, whether it's high blood pressure. We've got to take care of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so Dr. Phillips is very clear. He says, listen, if you look at yourself and you see that you could lose a couple of pounds, then go ahead, do what you got to do and lose those pounds.
Right.
So we've got to take care of ourselves. As far as this COVID-19 thing, and I know this is probably going to be a talk for another one of your other shows, but I think that you have to look at this holistically. And what I mean by that is this. Why is there such a rush to reopen everything and there's still no cure, there's still no vaccine? Why is it that, we've got to be careful? We're going out, we're protesting, we're exercising our constitutional and amendment rights. Absolutely. Okay? Right. But we've got to be smart, because if we go out there and we get COVID-19, what are we doing?
I think people have decided they just tired of it. Like they ready to just turn COVID-19 off. But like you said, I mean, there's still a risk out there. I can even say for myself, man, I have not been initially as diligent as I was the first few weeks, man. I go out and I'm like, oh man, I forgot my mask. And then I got to go back to the truck and get my mask. But it's that time of year where brothers want to have their events. Brothers want to do their service. And especially with this new resurgence of social action out there, brothers are feeling the desire to kind of get out there and lead. And it's like, how do we best do that? So do you have any quick recommendations for brothers? I know for your district, you're going to make sure that you take care of the brothers and make sure that they're operating in the best interest of their own health and safety. But what other things can we do? What should we do?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. Right now, it's really going to be on a case-by-case basis, right? So just to your point, some people have been trapped in their homes. In essence, I say trapped, but you understand what I'm saying. Some people have been confined to their homes as a result of this COVID-19. Some people since February, in most cases since March. And so now here we are, it's June, the temperature is nice, everything's happening. People want to get out, especially as they hear that the various states are opening up phase 1, phase 2, at least here in Maryland. By next week, everything's going to be open. Malls, gyms, everything's going to be open again in Maryland. So people want to get out. People want to exercise their rights. People are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so for some people, the opportunity to go out and march, the opportunity to go out and demonstrate, they feel relief in that. And if that's what's going to help them, if that's what they want to do to feel better, then by all means, they should do it. But we've got to remember that COVID-19 is still here.
Right.
And we've got to remember that, the importance and understanding of the mask. The other thing is also that what we've heard about recently is this, asymptomatic. Now, there's a brother that's very close to you and I that I took a call from him, and although he was almost in tears, he wasn't almost in tears because he tested positive. He was upset about all the other people that he had interacted with.
Wow. Yeah.
And so the fact that he had to go and tell this brother, because he was at this brother's house and they were having a cookout, and the brother was there with his parents and his nieces and nephews. He had to tell this brother that, hey, I tested positive.
Wow.
Now, granted, I believe today is day 9 of his 14-day,
right.
Not a fever, nothing, no signs of anything, but he's tested positive. So that's something else that we've got to be mindful of. Just because somebody is not exhibiting the symptoms, there's still a possibility that they could be carrying the virus.
That's correct. And that's how is that bro doing? When was the last time you talked to him?
I just talked to him yesterday. He's doing great. He told me to tell you what's up.
Oh, okay, that's good, man. That's good. Yeah, Well, I appreciate you kind of weighing in on that. I want to take a quick break. I just want to make a quick announcement concerning a nonprofit organization that's close to my heart. For all of you in the Houston area, Northwest side, particularly if you are in the Cypress or Katy area, the Psi Phi Ravens Youth Athletic Club 501c3 will be having a free camp this Saturday, June 13th at 10 a.m. for its football players and cheerleaders. We start at the 6U, we go all the way up to the 12U. For football, this is full contact football. We will be practicing social distancing, and we will be practicing many safeguards on the football field. Sanitation, we will be taking temperatures before all participants step onto the field. Bring your kids out, it is free. We'd like you to register, and if you are interested, go ahead and email me at qblaw@me.com. That's qblaw@me.com. Email me. I'll send you the link so that you can register and visit the website at www.psifairravens.com. That's www.psifairravens.com. Young ladies, come on out, ages 5 to 13. We have a championship cheer squad led by the great coach, Brittany Matthews. Come on out. Bring out your kids. We'll do it responsibly. Psi Phi Ravens have a lot of good people that operate as mentors in the community. We want your child to come out and participate in some safe activities. Appreciate that, brother Pofo. Thank you so much for that break, and we are back. We're back with the Outer Chambers. Again, I'm your host, Brother Quinon Brooker Esq, and I am joined by the 37th Second District Representative, Brother Kelvin K. Ampofo. He's thought it not robbery to come and spend some time with us today. Brother Ampofo, we got the virtual clade. That is not a phrase that I thought I would ever say in my life. The virtual conclave. You know, it's funny because I spend some time on social media, and I'm a part of some of the various groups that the brothers have, and you know, you see brothers getting into it on social media, cyber wrecking, if you would, different discussions. I think it's great, honestly. I think that brothers should fraternize in whatever method that we can. Of course, sometimes it kind of goes a little overboard. However, this virtual conclave, I received my agenda. Of course, I'm the delegate for my chapter. I received my agenda on yesterday, and it is a full agenda. And I'm like, man, how in the world are we going to do this and get all of this business done on the internet? So what do you think, man? What do you think about the virtual conclave?
Well, I think that the international office, what they did was they looked at the districts. And so pretty much all of the districts, we had our district conferences virtually. And so I think they took some notes, and they took down the good things that they observed. And I think they noted some of the things that could have been improved. And I think, obviously, we know by our Constitution and bylaws, we have to have the conclave. So that's first and foremost. Wow. And I think that, obviously, with the state of COVID-19, we got to continue to take care of the business of the fraternity. So the virtual thing is spread out over 3 days. It's going to be interesting. But again, I think that observing the various districts and the way that the districts had their virtual conferences, I think we'll, make best of it.
Yeah, I'm disappointed because obviously the conclave is in Tampa, Florida, would have been in Tampa, Florida this year, which is 90 minutes from our campus where we pledged. And I was looking forward to kind of getting with, some of the chapter bros and just being back in Florida. Had some big plans, man, but that is not going to happen. So I hope it comes back to Tampa. I understand there's a possibility that it could come back. maybe in 2024. I don't know. I don't know if you've heard anything about that, but certainly this is a historic event for the fraternity to hold our International Grand Conclave online.
Yeah.
So, and it being your first conclave, I'm quite sure that this isn't quite what you expected either.
Well, I think just the first conclave probably as part of the Supreme Councils. Yeah, certainly not what I expected. But again, I think we gotta keep in mind the bigger picture, and that should be the safety of our brothers. And if I can, as we're talking about this COVID-19, I just want to go back, if I can, to the importance of the health of us as Black men, and maybe at a different time, we'll share some of the steps that you and I and some other brothers are personally taking to make sure that we're around. But I implore my brothers, we've got to take this health thing very seriously. The statistics are there. And for me, obviously, it was just one day when I looked at my kids and I said, I need to be around as long as possible. And not only for them, but for their kids.
Right.
The statistics, they're against us. There's a whole bunch of things that are not in our favor as Black men. And so I get it. The cigar smoking, the cigarette smoking, the drink, I get it. I get it. The bruhs, the chicken, I get it. But bruhs, we got to get to the point where we say, let's think about this. You don't got to eat the whole box of chicken.
Right.
And I love my doctor because he's very clear. He says, listen, you know what? You want to eat it? Go ahead, eat it. Just don't eat the whole box of chicken.
Right.
Right. You want to eat your pizza? Go ahead. Just don't eat. You don't got to eat a large pizza to yourself. So I'm hoping that my brothers will, take some consideration and let's do some things. And I mean, it's COVID-20. When we was in college, everybody knows about the freshman 15. All right. So it's like we automatically know in college, when you're a freshman, you're gonna put on these 15, right?
Right.
Until you get online and then you lose 30.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So just to my brothers, just take some steps, man, to just be around longer. That's all.
I mean, to that point, I want to take a question. We got a question from a soror, Delta Alpha soror, Spring 2000. That we know. She basically asks, is there an action plan? Is there an action plan that we have as the fraternity as to how we can address men's health more seriously? Clearly, it's a focus, especially with the way COVID-19 attacks those that has these pre-existing conditions, which again, it's ironic that those conditions are typically associated with diseases and conditions that Black people typically have. I find that pretty interesting. But do we have a plan? If we don't have a plan, should we have a plan? And what are some of your ideas about that?
So I think, like anything, the short answer is yes. Of course, there's a plan there. We have health drives. We have mobile buses that come by to prick your finger to give you immediate results as it relates to sugar, blood pressure, and all those things. But listen, for whatever reason, we don't like going to the doctor. So rule number one is, you got to have a primary care physician, right? You got to go see the doctor and let the doctor tell you all the things that you don't want to hear. And then it's up to us to adjust our lifestyles. So we have the initiatives out there. We have the plans of action. It all boils down to execution. I think, you can relate as an athlete. Your coach can have the best plays in the world. But if the players don't run the plays as directed, if we don't execute, then we don't win.
Right.
So I think the paths are there. Everything is there for us. We just got to follow through. And I think it just starts with number one. You'd be surprised how many people just ask, when's the last time you got a physical?
Right.
Or do you even have a doctor? We got to take it seriously. We just got to just take the steps so that we can be around for our people.
Right. I like to shift gears here, man. You have an initiative that I think is awesome. That you have submitted to the powers that be. I'll leave the processes out of it. That could change the direction of the fraternity. I want to talk about that in about 15 seconds. But if you don't mind, I just want to share with our viewers right now. We got 15 in the chat 15. We need more. Calling our bros to the floor. Where are the cues? We need more. Go ahead and pound that like button. Pound that share button. Let's get more brothers involved in the conversation. Let's get more of our sisters involved in the conversation as we talk about these very important issues. But I do want to share some information with you. This week in Black History Today. This week in Black History Today. I'll start with June 10th of 1794. A black man by the name of Richard Allen founded the Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Philadelphia. That is this week in Black history. Also, on June 12th of 1963, Medgar Evers, civil rights activist, assassinated in front of his home, shot down by a white supremacist on June 12th. And on June 13th, my law school's namesake, Thurgood Marshall, was appointed to the United States Supreme Court in 1967. And that is your This Week in Black History. We are a beautiful people. We are the original people, and we should always know ourselves. Now, Brother Ampofo, I want to get down to your initiatives. I have to admit, when you first brought this up to me, I was opposed to the concept. Didn't quite understand how it would work without hurting some areas in the frat. But after we talked about it, have to admit, I think that, first of all, you were right. And I think that it is an awesome concept. I presented it to the brothers in my chapter in our political action committee, and it was received mixed results. So I want you to introduce it, talk about it without getting into anything we can't get into. But first of all, if you don't mind sharing what it is, and then let's talk about how you think it will help the fraternity, Omega Psi Phi, immediately, and how it would help long term.
So, as you know, Spring '98, we're a very humble line, and so I am simply the author. The shout out goes to the brothers that we were sitting around the table, and we came up with this concept. I am just simply the author, and so as it stands right now, as the brothers know, we have two categories of chapters. We have graduate chapters and we have undergraduate chapters, and so the concept arrives from, we have a significant amount of brothers that right now are not financial. Mm-hmm. And not only are they not financial, they have no desire to be financial with a graduate chapter. And so from talking to these brothers, you ask the question and you say, what is it that you'd like to do? I mean, what is it that you want to do? And really, their only interest is to continue to ensure the longevity of their alma mater and their undergraduate chapter. Mm-hmm. So here's a thought. If a brother could still be financial, he could still help the fraternity by paying his dues and be responsible for all the programs that we do and assisting his undergraduate chapter be successful, then why not? Mm-hmm. So here's a concept of another category of chapters. This category of chapters will be alumni chapters. Okay. So in our case, we have brothers in our chapter. We love them. They haven't been financial since they went over.
Right.
So they have the ability to pay their dues to the fraternity, which helps the fraternity to continue to operate. Mm-hmm. And now that they're financial, they can become involved. In our case, being OE brothers, they would be a part of the OE alumni chapter. So these are graduate brothers, but they're making sure that Bethune-Cookman has everything that it needs from an alum standpoint. So any fundraisers, any donations, anything that we do, to raise funds, it'll go directly to Bethune-Cookman University. All the while, there's an opportunity to nurture and mentor our undergraduates at Omicron Epsilon. And what's the greatest thing of all? These brothers are financial.
Well,
In essence, that's it.
Well, yeah, and again, the first thing that comes to mind when I hear about alumni chapters is that, first of all, we know that in our fraternity, we had something called intermediate chapters. And typically, those intermediate chapters, their purpose was for those brothers that were in professional school to be members of, sort of, again, as an intermediary between being an undergraduate and a grad chapter brother. We no longer have those intermediate chapters. So that's the first thing that came to my mind is, are you trying to bring back the intermediate chapter? And then the second thing that comes to mind, I think logically is, what's the purpose? I mean, we already have graduate chapters, right? You and I are both members of graduate chapters. What is the purpose of an alumni chapter? And can it hurt the graduate chapter? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So the thought process, without understanding the entire proposal, it would appear that is in fact the case. The reality and the important thing to remember is this. These brothers that we are identifying, they have no desire to be in the graduate chapter, period. So these brothers are doing the things, and this is the brothers. These brothers are going to homecoming, right? We're being out at homecoming, and we're not giving our portion to the fraternity.
Okay.
So let's allow these brothers to give their portion to the fraternity so we can do our thing from a national perspective. And now they can do these things at homecoming with the approval of the fraternity. I'm talking special event checklists to ensure no liability claims, etc. All that's taken care of. And again, remember, these brothers have no desire to join the grad chapter anyway. To your point about hurting graduate chapters, I reemphasize that because they weren't going to join the graduate chapter anyway. Oh, well, what about the brothers that are already in the graduate chapter? They may say, oh, well, now I'm going to go join the alumni chapter. Well, understand that the alumni chapter in the proposal has no voting power. Mm-hmm. So these brothers that are involved, such as yourself, such as myself, we're involved already in our graduate chapter. We would be brothers with dual membership.
Okay.
Because we're going to continue to support Bethune-Cookman. We're going to continue to support Omicron Epsilon. But at the same time, in your case, you're going to make sure that Rho Beta Beta has your support, and you want to be there for voting purposes of Rho Beta Beta. I'm going to continue to ensure that Mu Nu chapter has my support, because I want to continue my vote within Mu Nu chapter. So again, we got to remember who we're targeting. In addition, this is going to help our reclamation numbers immensely. If we were to take just roughly, we've got about, I'm just going to round it off and say 10,000 brothers that are not financial. Mm. If we were to just get half of that, if we were to get 5,000 brothers to pay their 125, that amount could potentially offset the amount that we're paying already in premiums. So if there's a chance that this additional income, and let's start with our undergraduates. We're going to always start with our undergraduates. If our undergraduates didn't have to pay the premiums that they're paying now because we got this additional income from these alumni chapters, then now let's help out our undergraduate chapters so they don't have to pay that amount that they have. They can use that money for their programs and their scholarships, and we could go on and on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. Of course, it has to be something that we decide on as a body at our, in our processes. Do you think that it has, the chance? Well, obviously you believe in it. What do you think is the likelihood that this thing will go through?
Well, so it needs 2/3 of the vote to pass, and so one of the things, as being a former DKRS, I've had the opportunity to talk with every district keeper of records and seal in our fraternity. And so they've had the opportunity to share that information with their chapters. Listen, if we're going to continue to keep doing the same thing, then we can't expect different results. And so here's an opportunity to get brothers financial. And hopefully these brothers that get financial, hopefully they will end up matriculating into a graduate chapter. We got to start somewhere. And if we continue to keep doing the same things, then we can't expect different results. And I believe that if we give an opportunity for a brother to at least just simply pay their dues and be recognized as an alumni member of their undergraduate chapter of initiation, I believe it's a beginning. I believe it's a start. I believe once they see what's happening at the graduate chapters, they will eventually want to become more involved in the graduate chapter. And we're going to have more brothers financial, and we can lower some of our other costs that we have as brothers because we now have more income. That's what I strongly believe.
Right. I appreciate it, man. Well, listen, brother, I appreciate you. I wish you much success, much love. I'm excited about what's coming in the future for Omega. I believe I know some good things that are in the pipeline for the fraternity. Just to take us out with a last thought, describe the future of Omega Psi Phi, man. I'm gonna give you 15 seconds. Describe the future of the Q Psi Phi and where we're going as an organization and how we will impact Black society.
Well, the future of Omega Psi Phi is ever changing, and we're going to be to the point where we don't rely specifically on old organizations, specifically the NAACP. No, I believe Omega Psi Phi, we're going to be at the forefront, and others will follow our lead. But we got to get out there. We got to be first. We got to get out there and say, this is going to be the charge. This is how we're going to address the social injustice, and this is what we're going to do for our people. Once we go out in front, others will follow.
We have to lead. We have to lead. Hey, man, this is, again, the 37th, 2nd District Representative, Brother Kelvin Kwesi Ambrofo. My line brother, man, thank you so much for coming on with us. We are going to wrap up. I'm not going to keep the good people too long. I am excited about where we're going with this thing. I'm excited about us as a fraternity. Brothers, we must lead. As PR has said, we got work to do. We got some serious work to do. As we go out, I just want to acknowledge some of our sponsors. This show is sponsored by Friends for QB from Vice.com, Friends for QB for Vice.com. Brothers, come on through and understand that we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do, good brothers. And as we take this thing out, I thank you all for joining with us. We got 23 in the chat. Remember, share this show. Go out, talk about it. Get with me. Let me know what we can do better. Let me know how we can make this show a success. Let me know the things that you want to discuss as we come through with greater and greater content, more outbrush. And of course, we appreciate all of you that may be uninitiated in the Great Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated for being with us. Again, my name is Brother Quinon Brooker Esq, 698OE, active in Rho Beta Beta chapter. I'm the immediate past 9th District Counselor. I thank you for joining me. We're going to take it out here, LB.
All right.
We'll let it ride to this nice beat. Everybody have a good night.
Hey, man, great job. Great job. You should go ahead and hit a march to it.
I think this might be the part. They don't know about the 5 and the 6. Hey, man, big shout out also to our LBs, the Ace, Gregory Abdul Drain, Out State College, PA, doing this thing as the band director, first Black band director in the Big Ten University program at Penn State. And our 4, as my LB mentioned, Michael, Edward, Leroy Johnson.
Leroy. And I can't let you do that without giving that shout out to our dean, our ADP. And yeah. Shout out to Ahmad Ramsey. Hold it down. Number 10, Spring 95, Daytona Beach. Our ADP, Ron Christopher Osborne Williams, at 12. And of course, the one and only Lockjaw 13, 950E. Don't forget ADP, we got that 6-point style. We got 12 ways, 7 days.
And we saw you in the chat, good brother. To all the brothers, man, peace to all the brothers all throughout the world.
Shout out to BG.
Outer Chambers, we're out of here.